Hey, welcome back to Child Psychology. Today we're going to talk about Chapter 6, Cognitive Development in Infancy, First 2 years. Remember again, let me remind you to connect with what we're learning in this chapter with the other two chapters in this unit. In other words, if we want to understand how children learn cognitive development, we have to connect that with the biology, especially the biology of the brain. We're going to see especially with a lot of children, that they will maybe be held back because they have not received the nutrition that they need. Some children, on the other hand, they're very active. Maybe that affects how they learn. Of course, what we'll see, especially in this chapter, is that we learn as we are exposed to certain cognitive challenges. I just read research that says that they're finding that people who are the most intelligent are the people who have the best smarts, are people who mentally challenge themselves, who have questions that they have to answer. We're going to see, that the sharpest people are always the people who didn't hold back, man. They took those hard classes. They asked themselves hard questions. Okay, let's roll that back to infancy, the first 2 years. It is fact. It's scientific fact that you want your child to be ready to learn and to be mentally sharp. You get in their face, you talk to them, you show them things, you discuss stuff, and I'm not just saying presentationally, but ask them questions. So we're going to see, especially in this chapter, language learning. Isn't language learning dependent upon exposure? So anyway, we'll start with cognitive development. We always start with a stage theory, which gives us some kind of structure that we can say, well, by this age, children should be able to do blah, blah, blah. So the stage theory is Piaget, cognitive development. And his ideas are based on what we'll call evolutionary psychology. Evolution means that you are exposed to something and you react to it and you adapt to it, and through that adaptation that gives you an ability that maybe you didn't have before. And that's the whole idea with cognition. We have an idea, what Piaget called the schema, the scheme or schema is your idea. So you interact with the world based on your idea, and you have one of two ways to go. You can either respond by saying, oh, I was right all along, in which case you assimilate to that idea, or you go, my life experience didn't seem to bear up under that life experience, so I need to change the way I'm thinking, which we call accommodation. Okay, so we assimilate and we accommodate. Okay, and then what we'll find is that there are some times where we have to accommodate so much. We find that we are wrong so much that what we'll have to do is kind of come back and develop a more complex way of reasoning that then explains, incorporates, helps us predict our life experiences. We'll call that equilibration, that need to equalize assimilation and accommodation by employing a more complex way of reasoning. Piaget calls that going up to the next level of cognitive development, that need to equilibrate, and then the result of that. So his first level or stage of cognitive development is called sensory motor, and like we talked about last chapter, sensory motor means you're putting together what you sense and your movements. Literally, that's what we're doing in the first year or 2 years of our lives. We're kind of figuring out how to put those things together. We start off with all the only real cognitive ability we have, is reflex. Something happens and you react to it. So we'll call this first substage 1 reflex. What we'll find is that we keep reacting. Our reflexes keep happening, and then we develop the memory of that. So, say for example, you're hungry or thirsty, and so you get to drink. Sucking, being breastfeeding, or sucking on a bottle or something. That sucking is a reflex. Nobody teaches a baby how to do that. I challenge you. Try to figure out how to teach somebody how to suck. Couldn't do it because it's reflex. So we have reflex, and then that second substage, what we'll call the primary circular reaction, is where we start to think about that reflex. Ooh, that feels good. Oh, that tastes good. And then from that we go to stage 3, which is the secondary circular reaction. What we'll do then, because we can think about it, now we'll start to enact it again in order to get that response. This is the first thinking that we use. Okay? So we start to coordinate this and make plans. I'm hungry. I want this because that's what feeds me. And that's substage 4, when we really are planning and acting out. Then we get to the tertiary circular reaction. What we'll do is start to use other methods to get the same result. For example, you get comforted by breastfeeding, right? So one day I figure out that works as well. I'm going to suck on that. That's the tertiary circular reaction. I can't always breastfeed. I can suck my thumb because that's always there. Okay, so I'm replicating the same consequence, same pleasure I'm getting it from something else. We keep doing that the rest of our lives. That's why people smoke cigarettes. Suck on the cigarette, man. It replaces the breastfeeding. Or anything else. You get sad, you eat a quart of ice cream, stick it in your mouth. Tertiary circular reaction. Then that's the fifth substage, and then we get to the sixth substage, where we're really going to internalize the schemes. We're going to internalize those ideas, those circular reactions, to the point where we're starting to learn about time and the passage of time. Now we're going to replicate things, making plans. Okay, if I do this, then this will happen. And that gets more and more complex. If I do this, this will happen. That'll lead to this. This will happen. I want this, so I'm going to go through these stages in order to get it. Okay, so that's basically Piaget's idea. And then we get to, thinking about thinking, or looking at the way infants think. We'll see that they do all kinds of things in this first couple of years. We learn from our interactions, but we also learn to pay attention to things. Watch what babies do in their first couple of years. They're amazing what they attend to. Most of them will attend to your face. And there's a reason for that. Why would you look at somebody's face? What is in a face? I'm going to leave you with that. I'm not going to answer that. So attention is important. Something else is memory. Most of us don't remember our first couple of years of life. We don't have enough life experiences at that point in order to compare what happens in order to store new memory. So the more life experiences you have, the easier it is to remember. Then, most of us, by the time we're 2 or 3, have enough life experiences to compare new experiences with in order to remember. And this leads us, I mentioned a few minutes ago that language really is dependent upon exposure. We probably learn language better than we learn anything else. And you think about that, how you can communicate, and you never took a class to communicate, you never sat down and did homework or a worksheet or listened to somebody lecture in order to learn how to talk. You learned how to talk just by being exposed to people talking. That's really the bottom line there, is exposure. Exposure. We're born hardwired to pick up the ability to communicate. We pick up sounds, that's called phonology. We put those sounds together, we hear other people use sounds and they seem to have meaning, that's called morphology, where we make words. We put the words together in a meaningful way, that's called syntax. We understand what each word means. Psychologically, that's called semantics. And then we also learn how to use language like tone of voice, yelling, screaming, raising your voice at the end of a sentence that makes it a question, that's called pragmatics. They're all different parts of the language we learn. The most important thing to remember from the language discussion in this chapter is that we learn by interacting, and we learn by listening and other people modeling language to us. So if you want to know, why do some people have a better vocabulary than others? Simply, they're exposed to more vocabulary. Why do people start school with better grammar than somebody else? Because they grew up in a house where people used good grammar. Anyway, well, I hope you enjoy chapter 6, and I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you with chapter 7.